Okay, welcome. I'm Tim Scoggins, Chairman of the Shaftsbury Select Board. Before we go into the Select Board meeting tonight, we're having an emergency meeting of the Water Board. There's not a water emergency, but we do have an item that we have to make a decision on tonight, and we were not able to schedule it later in the week because of availability of the selectmen, so we're going to do that now. Jim McGinnis, our water superintendent, is here. So I will call this Water Board meeting to order at 6:30 on Monday, January 21st, 2019. And Jim, I believe you have some stuff to tell us about the loan that we've been trying to get for replacing the water mains in the village.
Yeah, as it stands right now, the state did not have as many applicants for this period. However, if we do choose to go ahead with it, we can fix it up in several ways so there's no out-of-pocket expenses. That it can be rolled into a planning loan, which would be something that you would start the process with, and that funds can be given to the town through the planning loan. And then, as far as the planning loan is concerned, that would evolve into a construction loan as we accumulate more and more information on what exactly has to be done and how we're going to do it. On the other hand, if we do not accept it right now, and it has to be held until next year, we don't jeopardize our chances for getting it.
You say we don't?
We don't, no. We just stay where we are. We don't have that high a priority because we don't have any issues that involve health and welfare of the people who participate in the water district. So really, what you have to decide now is, do we want to start, do we want to pursue it? If we want to pursue it, we're going to have to go to Otter Creek Engineering, who has been our engineer in the past, and come to an agreement with them on services that they would offer relative to this revolving loan program that the state has.
When would we be charged interest, and when would we have to start making payments on principal?
On principle, you wouldn't if you put it through. Everything is the state will, on the planning loan, will give you so much towards the planning, and you would be reimbursed. In other words, we did work with Otter Creek, and they gave us an engineering study on what has to be done and how to do it. We would then pay them and then be reimbursed by the state under this planning loan program.
Okay, so it's not an outright loan, it's just it's a loan in the fact that we have to pay it first and then be reimbursed.
That's right, but in other words, payments aren't due until the construction is done, and then you have a year from the time that this construction is done, the project is done,
Yeah,
to start the payments. The payments can be over a 20 to 30 year period. And also, too, if you do an economic study to show, and it shows that the water district is not at the same level of per capita income as the town, there can be some forgiveness in interest or actual grant. In fact, your project, last project in 2008, 2009, Joe Herman told me that there was a forgiveness in there of almost $200,000 because of the economic level of the water district. So there are things that you have to decide now whether we want to go ahead with it in this coming fiscal year, or we want to wait until 2020 when our loan with North Bennington is paid off. That loan there cost the water district about a little over $19,000 a year. And those funds that we have right now will become available to begin payment on the state revolving loan program. However, I don't want you to get sticker shock, but in other words, that 19,000 is averages out to about $65 a year per household, and that would probably say figuring about $1 million if we were to go and bond out or get a loan for $1 million. It would come to about $145 per household.
I
So
was reading that in your on the email.
Mhm.
Now it's going to raise the cost about $81 a
Mhm.
year.
well, that isn't exact. I mean, that's just
It's just a
approximate.
guesstimate, okay.
That's right. In other words, hey, how this is going to flesh out by 2020, 2021. Right
nothing's
now,
written in
no.
stone.
And we're going to have to do some planning. We'll have to go and find out, hey, how are we going to do it? What's the scope of the work? How are we going to do this? What options are we going to use? We have to cite all the relative options and then decide which way we're going to go with it. There's
Yes.
possibility of we can be replacing pipe for a pipe, or if the condition is of the mains are good enough, we can even sleeve it with plastic, heavy-duty plastic.
Has there been any more testing on the pipe to find out?
No, there hasn't. That's been a very sharp disappointment. The studies that Otter Creek came up with are vague and inconclusive as to what the condition of the pipe is.
That doesn't help.
That doesn't help at all, because there's the EPA has a lifespan of 75 years on the pipe, but no one can find a study.
That's on the vinyl pipe, right? The PVC.
No.
No, the asbestos.
Oh, the
cement pipe.
asbestos. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, one of the earmarks of what they being some of the people who were studying this pipe, the AC pipe, was the fact that they were looking at how much free asbestos is in the water, because that would be an indication of pipe breaking down.
Sure.
Okay, we did a test last year on free asbestos, and it's under the current protocol to ascertain what the level is. It is lower than what they can possibly measure, and the measure was 0.7 parts per billion, and ours was lower than that.
Wow.
So, by EPA standards, the asbestos is a non-factor as far as the quality of water is concerned.
How much of that pipe is anywhere throughout the country?
So one of the studies highlighted the fact that about 23% of all the pipe that was laid between 1929 and 1954 was asbestos cement pipe. Now, how much of that has gone bad? There's no.
They haven't had any breaks or anything to speak of?
No, well, with our system alone, we had 2 breaks this past summer because Green Mountain Power came
Yeah.
to replace the poles.
Poles, yeah.
We pulled the pipe that was broken and kept that, and it's clean.
Hey, I was gonna say, I remember you talking about that, saying it was.
Yeah, it was clean, the 2 pieces of pipe.
Yep.
Then about 3 years ago, an old repair that had been done because of construction prior to Joe Herman coming on board went bad, and and what failed wasn't the pipe which was broken before. It was the wrap that they used to secure the pipe when the break was made. It was just iron iron screws as opposed to stainless steel that we use now to do the same work with using a wrap-around pipe break. So, as far as there's no indications with our system that we have any bad pipe, from what we can find out now. How many test pits would you need? Well, what's the criteria that we're looking for? We're looking for some type of criteria that somebody else has studied and done some work on, and
You're poking and
They're not-
prodding, trying to find a problem.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's funny you say that. Talking with Otter Creek today, John Kiernan, the engineer that was working with us,
Right.
and he said, you know, how many times do you want to try it to see if it's bad? And really, in other words, hey, it's nice and considering doing your due diligence that you wanted to test the pipe before you, but there's not enough background material that Otter Creek can find that they can use to say put a plan together and say, hey, let's look for conditions, so these type soil conditions.
I think the biggest factor that I found, not in just water lines, but water lines, sewer lines, any kind of underground pipe, in my 50 years of working on construction, is the biggest factor is if it's installed properly.
Okay, on yours, during the winter of 2014, 2015, Joe and I put in some, we hot-wired some water mains private water mains that froze during that bad winter. And that meant connecting the wire to the corporation cock in the street, and then, of course, attach it to the pipe as it entered the building, so that if there was any ice, we'd be able to use the term shock it so that it would thaw. Well, we did about 4 holes where we connected this, and the pipe was a classic case of a sand laid on the sand bed, buried in sand above.
Yeah,
And the work that was done up at Twitchell Hill because of the Green Mountain power accident, same situation.
yeah.
Laid in sand and covered and topped with sand. It was a good, and that was done in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
I guess I'd like to make a motion just so we can have discussion then. I make the motion that we don't go for the money at this time.
I
We have a
second.
motion from Art that we decline the loan at this time for the water mains. Is there a second?
Second.
Joe did.
Joe's seconded. Okay. Let's get back to the question of the loan. Per the motion, make sure we're clear on one thing. You're saying we can take the money now and we don't start payments until after construction is completed.
That's right.
Construction would be completed after we get out from under the first of the current bonds.
Mhm.
So in terms of impact on ratepayers, there's no downside to taking the money now.
There's no downside to taking the money now, but you wouldn't be taking the loan right now because it's not determined what amount we're going to need and what we want to do with it. What we do is we start off by applying for a planning loan. That planning loan then we use to pay for tester and also to the engineering work that Otter Creek would do. Then that would go to the state. The state would approve it. We would be reimbursed for whatever expense was to do the various tests with the planning loan, and then that would be carried forward, and that would, when all of the planning is done and we're ready to start, that would roll over into a construction loan. That construction loan would be just like we'd get, let's just use the term $1 million. We get the $1 million and we disperse it according to the scope of the job and the plan.
No, I think the only downside of possibly not getting a loan now is that the federal rate's gonna go wanky at some point. And I don't know if that's gonna be a determining factor of, that's speculation, so.
Yeah.
That's,
Well, okay, this is a government loan. I'm sure it's connected in some way to the Fed rate.
yeah.
But also too, in other words, and I would probably go to Joe Herman and find out what the study was that in 2008, 2009 allowed the state to forgive somewhere around $200,000 for that improvement that the water district did in 2008 and 2009. Because that still has a force of law behind it. That is something that Otter Creek recommended based on past experience, that whenever we did it, we do it in that manner. So that,
Isn't that big enough that we'd have to place it out to bid, not just hand it to Otter Creek?
well, what, for the plan, in other words, for the planning, yeah, that's true.
That's a decision the select board could make. We could choose to bid it out. Our policy would indicate that yes, anything over $3,000 is put to bid. So you're right, that could be put to competitive bid.
But also, in other words, Otter Creek, in other words, I'm not pro or con here at all, just consider this. Otter Creek as a company has been involved with this water district for a number of years, and they know it. Where if you went and you did get another company, they'd have to get some background information as to what we have here and become familiar with it. We
Well, I understand that, but
Yeah.
you're talking quite a lot of money
Oh, yeah.
for something like that.
Well, I like Otter Creek, and John Kieran is a nice guy, but I think we should still shop him, and just to keep
Oh,
him honest.
yeah.
Remember that we're talking about two things
Right,
here.
yeah.
The engineering study is one, which is
Right.
Long ways away.
thousands of dollars, and then there's the construction part of it, which is millions, and we would definitely bid
Yeah,
out
yeah,
the
yeah.
millions of dollars in construction.
Well, I'm
$1 million.
a little concerned talking about something like this. We don't know the pipe is bad yet.
Right.
Well, it's not gonna get any better.
No, I understand that.
We're mandated to replace it, is that right?
No, we're not
No,
mandated
no,
to
no,
replace
no,
it.
we're not. No, we're not.
But let's recall the situation is that by the known scientific and engineering information, we are at the end of life of this pipe now.
Okay.
Our plan to replace the pipe is 30 years long because we've got bonds that we want to finish off before we start paying on it now. So we got one bond that's ending in 2020. That'll give us $65 per ratepayer
Right.
per year to soften the blow of this new bond for part of the construction. We'll do that, and then we'll wait for 10
Yeah, and until
10 years until the
10
next.
years, yeah, the 2008, 2009 bond is retired. And that's an additional $14,000 a year.
Yeah, so we wait, we get that other bond to go away, then we borrow more money, which again, I assume will cover part of the cost.
That's right.
So, you know, that's what we're doing here. So, we could go out and replace it all tomorrow if we had the money and we're willing to burden the ratepayers that way. But in order to soften the blow on ratepayers, we are hoping to extend the life of this pipe 30 or 40 years until we get out from under these other bonds. So it behooves us to not wait until the pipe breaks, because that could happen. Then we could have an entire system that has to go down. We would have to borrow $3 million. Is it all at once? And that would be a real shock, in addition to the bonds that are still being paid off.
My only reason for making the motion is I just didn't think we needed to shock people by saying that we're headed out for more money and we haven't even paid off the last one, even though I understand that we are not obligated to pay off principal or anything else like that. Joe seems to assure us that by waiting, we do not jeopardize our place in line. And that was my only reason. I don't see any advantage to doing it. If we were to lose our place in line, I'd go for it in a minute, but
The only advantage I see is that we can start using the loan for the planning, which could be in, I assume, like $10,000 worth to plan how we're gonna do all
Well,
this.
5 to 15 is what John quoted me.
Is there any advantage interest-wise?
The stuff that Jim sent
No.
in terms of this drinking water revolving fund, especially if we get the hardship case with because of our incomes, it says you get a 3% loan. It's written into this
Okay.
the
So there's
the
no- okay.
program, the
I was
state
thinking there
program.
was
It's not.
advantage with this interest rate versus the future interest.
Right,
rate.
right.
So there isn't, okay.
No,
Yeah, now that's not to
it's
say
great.
that the state won't change
Right.
their rates relative to Fed rates, but right now it looks like the rates that we get are written into the law or into the program policies and not hinged on Fed rates.
If we start on a replacement system, is it intended to replace everything that's existing or adding more feet that we've already got?
No, it just, okay, this program here is solely to replace the asbestos cement pipe.
Okay,
Period, that's it. With the
Yeah.
ductile iron pipe that we have and the PVC pipe that's in the ground related to the last water improvement, yeah, well, are still there.
Yeah.
Ductile iron pipe has right now, a lifespan of over 100 years.
yeah. Is there a sleeve that can go into the existing pipe we got?
Yeah, that is one of the options that Otter Creek has discussed. That, in other words, that we can look over and decide whether we want to use it or not.
Because I mean, the cost of that, as opposed to installing all new pipe.
Oh, yeah.
Well, when we talked about that before, recall that was a more expensive option.
The
That
stainless
sleeving
steel.
is something you do when you're running underneath, between two skyscrapers in New York, where you don't want to tear up the street and bring everything to a halt. When you're out in the rural area, you take a rural area. It's cheaper to take a backhoe and dig up the pipe and put in a PVC pipe than it is to fish it through with the robots and make it.
You want a
expand.
race? I'll push it, you dig it. We'll see who gets there first. I've done it, but I've done it.
You've done the robot thing with the sleeves?
When you sleeve a pipe, you can run, I don't know how many feet a day. And you get, because of OSHA regulations and everything else, you start digging, it gets slow. You get trench
Not according to the
matches.
engineer. I mean, you got those robots that got to go in there and get the valves where you sleeve off in different
Well,
directions and all that.
what I've been involved with, I would say it's faster, but it's
Well, that's
an engineering company would know better than I.
we're getting off the topic. We're
Right.
just
Yes,
talking
a
about the
little
loan.
bit.
right. We are.
We need to stick with the loan.
Yeah. Art's point is well made. We're off topic. We're talking about whether or not we take this loan now or
Right.
later.
If we take this now, what we have to do is this would be an Otter Creek job, would be to develop a scope of work and submit that prior to the 1st of April, when which is the deadline for accepting or refusing the loan.
So what we've just been put to the front of the line. Is that essentially what's
No,
happened?
well, essentially, a lot of people have said no. A lot of people ahead of us have said no. It's
Okay.
not the time.
It's gonna
So,
put us under the gun, isn't it? 1st of April can come pretty fast.
Yeah,
For an engineer.
that's one of the reasons why I want to make sure we got to this tonight, because if we're not going to do this, there are other towns that might be shovel-ready and want to get going. And when we originally talked about this, we didn't think we'd get this
Yeah,
opportunity. We thought we're talking maybe 2020, we'd get an offer of 2021. So everything Jim says is correct. Yeah, we probably could. We would be
Under the gun.
starting way before we intended to, but we could do it.
Right, I just think.
It's just if we're not going to, there might be another town behind us who could use this money and would like to get it this round.
Any other discussion? All in favor of turning down the loan for the water main replacement at this time, say aye.
Aye.
That's 4. I honestly don't know the right answer, so
Yeah, right, that's right.
I'll abstain.
Okay.
401.
All right, so
Sure say
4-1.
no.
The motion carries, so we will not try to pursue this at this time.
Mhm.
We assume that, as we've said, we don't think we have an imminent failure upon us, so even if we don't get it the moment we get out from under the bond, there's no hardship there. In fact, we could start saving up
Just like we did for the garage.
for the garage with the current rate, so, yeah.
Well, basically, as far as that saving up is concerned, we started last fiscal year with 103,000 in, and it's up to 142 now.
Perfect.
So we do have, in other words, we're at a comfortable level that, hey, when we go to apply for the loan, this is one of the things they're going to look at, and it
What
would
you've
be
done.
strongly
Building
in
up
our
that money
favor.
was part of the original plan. That we would have these extra years so that would build up to a higher level so that we would have more money to start this.
And this money is money we can use for the engineering study?
Sure,
Okay.
but
So that's an
Well-
even better reason not to take the loan now. That was the only reason I saw as the upside to that. Okay, I'll vote yes.
Too late, you're down here.
Yeah. Okay. Now, one thing that we sort of hinted on there that I want to clarify, where the engineers are telling us they don't have good criteria for evaluating that pipe. Now, have we dug up pipe and had them look at it yet?
no.
Okay.
Okay, the only thing that, John has seen pipe, and that's the two dig-ups by Green Mountain Power when they hit those bad segments I had pulled and showed it to him, and he was the one that said it looks like it's brand new.
Okay, but we did vote a while back to go out and start digging up pipe, at least in one place, to see
Yeah.
if we needed to have more urgency about this process. And what the engineers are telling us now is we can dig it up, we can look at it, but we're not going to be able to tell you much from it because we don't really know the criteria for
That's-
evaluating whether or not it's good or not.
So they haven't collected enough data to know.
Yeah,
That's-
one of the things that we did ourselves on this question is finding out what the level of asbestos was in the water. If it was above the 7.7 parts per billion, then in other words, that's something to be concerned about because it shows that the asbestos is breaking free from the cement and passing through.
And that's not happening. So
That's
the
not happening.
one test that we do know, it says that there's nothing to worry about yet with the pipe.
That's right.
So the question is, do we want to vote again on that question of digging up pipe and having it evaluated, given that there's not a good criterion for evaluation of that pipe if we dig it up?
I see no, in other words, I was the one who was pushing for it because it, just based on due diligence. But in other words, coming through with, he sent down 4 studies. It's like reading a fairy book in terms of, hey, what's good and what's bad.
Right.
We just gave him permission and he declined not to use it, so I guess, I don't think there's a vote needed.
I think there is, because we did
Okay.
direct him to do it, so
Okay, all right.
we need a motion to direct the water superintendent not to dig up pipe for evaluation of pipe life,
Not to dig it up?
not to dig it up. Because we voted to dig it up, and now we're saying we can dig it up, but we're not gonna learn anything if we dig it up.
There's not an established criteria that.
Let's get the,
Right, and I understand that, but I mean, I think common sense goes a long ways too when you look at a pipe and inspect it.
Well, we did, in other words, do that with the 2 breaks in Twitchell Hill.
Right, and then you said it looked clean. It looked
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
So we're saying, why dig up some?
Oh, some more, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's right.
Just based on that pipe on Twitchell. Okay, sure.
So, I'll make the motion.
Art has made a motion that we instruct this water superintendent not to dig up pipe for evaluation of pipe lifetime.
Second.
Second by Ken. Okay, any more discussion on that point? Joe, I'm not sure if you're in favor of digging it up or in favor of not digging it up.
Well, I was under the understanding that we weren't sure what we had, so then I was in favor of digging it up to find out what we've got. But if we're basing it on the pole situation on Twitchell Hill and what you had seen, and
And,
that's fine. Then if we're going to come to the
And
conclusion,
we tested the water for asbestos.
right, and I think that's good.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
So that is 5-0-0. So we are instructing you not to dig up pipe and try and evaluate it, since nobody knows what to
What's
evaluate
good
it
and what's
by.
bad, yes.
Yeah.
That's-
Anything else we need to deal in an emergency way with the water? Okay.
Sorry to disappoint you.
I
Not at all.
did have a Shaftsbury whisper in my ear that the water bills come out at the wrong time. Bad timing on the water bills. It's around the holidays, and I think that's. But anyway,
They come out in November,
November,
yeah,
yeah.
early
And-
November.
That's
Yeah.
off the emergency topic.
I know it is.
Yeah.
Point of law.
But a taxpayer
Okay.
whispered in my
Yeah.
ear, so I thought
To
I'd share
that
it.
point,
It's-
I have not called anyone yet on a delinquency. Okay, starting this week, I am.
Let's get everybody
Okay,
to-
it's just simply a matter of I found that I get more cooperation when I sort of slide by the holiday period.
Absolutely.
And then, so, yeah,
So you work with it.
I've done that. Joe told me about that. And I found that he knows what he's talking about. People react a little differently.
Okay, that's good.
So
We need
basically,
motion to get out of this, don't we?
yeah,
Yeah, we do. Dave makes the point that in an emergency meeting, we can talk about the emergency topic, and then we need to not go any further. So Art's making a motion to close the water board meeting.
Second.
Second by Ken. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, Jim.
Okay, gentlemen, see you.
Thank you, stay well.
Yeah.
All right, at this time, 7:03, I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Shaftsbury Select Board to order. And first check and see if any member has a conflict of interest with anything appearing on the agenda this evening.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I'm on the board of the Bennington Rescue Squad.
Do you get a lot of money from your position on Bennington
No,
Rescue
but
Squad?
I still have some concerns about conflict, perceived conflict. That's the only issue. I mean, I think I can participate in giving you
Yeah,
information.
can I ask him, we can ask him for information.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I disagree that that's a conflict of interest. Conflict of interest is about voting to enrich yourself is the fundamental criterion there. And we ask you to be on the Bennington Rescue Squad specifically to gather information, to come back and inform this board. And I think your opinion is at least as valuable, and your vote is at least as valuable as anybody else's here relative to that, since you do not receive any kind of monetary remuneration, is that the word?
right.
For,
that's the word. Very
for your,
good.
write that down before I forget
It's
it.
an SAT word.
For your service on the board, I don't believe that there's a conflict of interest. Does anybody disagree?
I'm actually the one that wanted him here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So it's the opinion of the board, the consensus of the board, that there's not a conflict of interest with you giving us information and voting on the funding for Bennington Rescue Squad. Approval of minutes. In the Dropbox, there were quite a few. Do all those need approval?
Yes.
Okay. We went all the way back to 10-1.
10-1 was minutes, I had sent you an email. If you look at it, I'm not sure, we weren't sure, you weren't at this meeting. We put these corrections in, I'm not sure
Right.
what the
That's right.
intent was.
that's what it was.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Your corrections on there, we weren't quite sure what the intent of some of the wording change was.
Mr. Kulikowski moved to approve the minutes. Barbara seconded. Especially did it make clear that the reference rule. He also corrected that the proposed bylaw on motel conversions allows for annual inspection by the town health officer or fire safety officer, not the zoning administrator. The minutes as they were transcribed said that the motel conversions would be inspected annually by the zoning inspector, when in fact the proposed statute reads that it would be inspected by the town health officer or fire officer. And it's also worth noting that that clause has been stricken from those bylaws during the hearing process. So that annual inspection is no longer relevant. But does that clarify
I think
what?
there's something on another page too.
Oh, okay.
It was just a couple of things we had questions on. I want to make sure what your intent was in the areas.
Let's see, 2 employees remain on leave following off-duty accidents, off-site accidents. I changed to off-duty. Some additional repairs will be needed to the machine usable, which will be made by the seller. The road crew recommends purchasing a sidewalk machine. Some additional repairs will be needed to make the machine usable, which will be made by the seller. Yeah, I stuck that in there to say that we weren't going to have to make additional repairs to the purchase price. Scoggins asked that the plan would be town plan update. We recommended the town do in terms of economic development. Scoggins asked the PD to organize the plan like Brattleboro's, which lists policies and recommendations at the beginning of this section. Is that a question?
I don't think so.
Okay.
That might have been
And then I stripped the part about cameras requiring follow-up because I wasn't sure what that meant.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, there were only 3 of us at that meeting, and we had some, wasn't sure what it was.
Okay, okay. All right, so is there a motion to approve the minutes for October 1, 2018 as circulated?
As amended? Is that?
Well,
Well,
amended.
I guess
This was the way they were circulated.
It's, okay, then,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
circulated, yes. Yep.
Yeah, just, this is normally what happens is, as I'm posting them to the web, I'll go through and read through them myself and make what I believe are corrections
Okay.
at that time. Amended really means once they're moved,
Right.
then
Yes.
we have a formal change there.
Okay.
Okay, so, as circulated, moved by Art,
Yep.
Second.
seconded by Joe. Any other discussion, corrections, additions? All in favor of approving the minutes for October 1, 2018, say aye.
Aye.
So those minutes are approved 5-0-0. Do I have those here?
I'll have to print you out a copy of that.
Okay.
I'll do these track changes on it.
Okay. Okay, so next we have minutes for January 2, 2019 that were circulated. I don't see that I made any changes to these. Is there a motion to approve?
Which one?
January 2.
Shoot, yeah. So moved.
So Tim Scoggins, Art Whitman, and Tony Kulikowski were there. Moved by Art, seconded by Tony. Discussion, additions, corrections. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Tim, Art, and Tony. Joe and Ken, do you want to abstain?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So the minutes for January 2 are approved 3-0-2. January 7th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for January 7th as circulated?
So move.
Moved by Art,
Second.
second by Joe. Any discussions, additions, or corrections? All in favor of approving the minutes for January 7th, say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
So there we had Tim, Ken, Art, and Joe. So 401 with Tony abstaining.
Had we approved December 17th? That came through in the Dropbox too.
Yes, we need to approve the 17th also.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for December 17, 2018?
So moved.
Moved by Art,
Second?
seconded by Joe. Any discussion, additions, or corrections?
I had one question. We talked about WBTN, and it said we asked them to present to the select board in January. Did we later ask them to come up with a petition, or did we ask them to come up with a petition at that time?
The board turned down their application, and at that point, I notified them of that and tell them they need to have a petition, which they have done and filed already.
Okay.
You need 135 signatures.
135 signatures.
Okay, but on the 17th, I don't think we asked them to come with a petition. I think this is right. He will ask them to present to the select board in January.
Correct.
Okay.
Which they,
I couldn't remember
Yeah.
at what point we
yeah,
asked
that's
for the
correct. But as we
petition.
went back into it and explained to them what they needed to do, they didn't want to do it. They didn't, felt they would just go ahead with the
Okay.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay.
I'm okay.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes for December 17, 2018 as circulated, say aye.
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 Abstain.
Let's see, here we have Tim, Ken, Art, and Joe. So again, it's 401 with Tony abstaining. Okay, let's see what I've got here that I can sign. January 2 and December 17. So I've got two sets.
Should have three altogether. December 17th, January 2nd, and January 7th. Unless I didn't print out the 17th.
I don't have the 7th. I've got January 2 and December 17th.
I printed out the 7th. wait.
I've got, it's best you print it off, right?
Oh, you've got it
You
set.
got it
Yes.
exactly what
Can I sign that
everybody
one?
else got, so.
I don't need it. I wrote something across it out, so go ahead.
Let's see, I got the 17th. It's the January 7th. that I need.
Oh, you do have the 17th, okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Yep,
Okay.
it's on the scrap paper.
It's what?
It's on scrap paper. I recycle paper.
Oh, you printed this. Okay.
Yeah, just draw a line through it, that's all.
This goes into the,
I can print one out for you tomorrow.
yeah.
Okay.
So print out the 7th, that is?
This goes on your permanent record.
I mean,
Yeah,
interesting
but-
log in
yeah.
the book there.
100 years from now, someone will be sorting through that.
Yeah, right.
What happened in this meeting?
What's that Whitman guy?
Okay, next up is warrants. And first up, I have payroll warrant number 14 in the amount of $24,643.17.
So move.
Motion to approve from Art.
Second?
Seconded by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
So payroll warrant number 14 in the amount of $24,643.17 is approved 500. David, didn't we authorize you to spend 40 cents on a new folder?
Joan refuses.
Yeah, right?
She's had that folder for 15 years and it's lasting.
Jeez, I believe it.
Vote on that, I think.
We're gonna have to pass a motion,
It's a
yeah.
gift.
Okay, next I have check warrant number 21 in the amount of $72,754.09.
So moved.
Motion to approve from Art,
Second.
seconded by Joe. Items over $1,000 are $3,100 to American Rock Salt, $1,500 to American Rock Salt, $4,400 to American Rock Salt, $9,000 to Blue Cross Blue Shield, $1,100 to Bennington County Sheriff, $1,000 to Business Card Services.
It's mostly postage. The envelopes, the stamped envelopes of the treasurer and Merck.
$11,000 to Ed Shule Construction for Cole Hall, $1,300 to GA Bow Fuels, $3,200 to Goldstone Architecture, $2,300 to Greater Heights Tree Service,
That's gonna be reimbursed by the state. That was part of the tree work on East Road.
$5,900 to KAS semi-annual site visit,
It was the water testing, biannual water testing at the landfill.
right. Also, $1,600 to KAS. I see.
That was part of the poet plan.
Okay. $1,100 to Lucky's Trailer Sales.
We had to buy a cage and a fuel tank and some lights for the 2017 pickup truck.
$1,100 to TAM. $1,100 to West Mountain Traffic Control.
Part of that will also be East Road, and part of it was we hired them to work with the guys when they did White Creek. 'Cause they were trimming on White Creek.
Mm-hmm. $1,000 to William E. Daly. $11,000 to William E. Daly. Those are the items over $1,000. Any other discussion on check warrant number 21? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Check warrant number 21 in the amount of $72,754.09 is approved, 500. Are there any announcements? We are continuing to meet at the school library until late February, mid-February?
Possibly the last meeting in February, probably the second meeting in March after town meeting. I mean, it's possible we'll be in February, but I don't want to guarantee that. We're moving along very well, but the floors all need to be done, so that's going to take an additional week. We could be.
Okay. And I would also remind folks that we still have open positions on the Planning Commission and the Development Review Board. If you would like to serve the town in that capacity, all you have to do is send an email to the Town Administrator, Dave Kiernan, who you can find through our website at shaftsburyvt.gov. Are there any public comments?
Nope.
Okay, Treasurer's Report.
Treasurer will not be here this evening. She didn't have a report to turn in mid-month. There wasn't a lot going on, so she'll join us at the next meeting.
Okay. Roads Report.
They've been out, as people can tell, pretty much the last 2.5 days, and Michael is staying home this evening. So I don't really have anything to put into the road report tonight. They're out trying to keep the roads safe, and that's their main occupation at the moment. But I have nothing new on roads in general tonight.
Okay.
I'd like to comment about the road along, when we talked about shires and that sort of stuff.
Okay.
And, we were under the impression, I was under the impression that the DRB kind of had the authority if a project that was happening caused some extra cost to the town or something like that, that they could have the developer do that. And according to what I was told at that meeting, they don't have that authority. The only thing that the road commissioner can do is say, you have to have this much of a curb cut, you have to have this size culvert, and that sort of stuff, and you have to maybe blacktop out in the road or something like that. But my understanding is, as far as getting extra money, it cannot be done through the DRB, but I think it can be done through Act 250, so.
Yes, I heard that comment. I'm not sure I know that that's right. I don't know if you have any information.
I was
David.
surprised to hear that myself.
I think if somebody decided to build a skyscraper in the middle of Shaftsbury on a dirt road, that we could require that they at least pave the road to it if they were expecting thousands of cars there to come every day, because otherwise the cars wouldn't get there. I don't.
In other places I've been in, we had requirements on developers to complete certain projects for us. I'll look into this. I was a surprise when I heard that too.
Okay, so I think it needs looking into.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my only comment.
Okay.
Yep.
Would that be part of checking out our requirements for if you build a housing development, of what the road standards have got to be, what they've got to build the road to? Could that be part of it?
Well, if they're building a road as part of a development, the new road has to be built by our rules.
Right, we've already got that.
But we have, and the question is, the addition of vehicles per day on an existing road, can we have them upgrade the road to accommodate the vehicles they're putting on it? Now, if a Hannaford was gonna go in there, we certainly would be able to address something like that, as far as I understand. So I'll have to look into this. This isn't the same impact, but I always thought that you could have developers work on the infrastructure that's gonna service their new development.
Right, but I
Especially
mean,
when it's not designed for that.
yeah, but it's not just the traffic, Dave. It's drainage and it's everything else.
Yeah, it's the whole.
Because it's like, remember when we was up on Blueberry Hill? There's like half the culverts up there that they should be.
Well, yeah, and the significant part here is you're adding a large impervious surface area that
Right.
has to drain into our existing ditch. Well, that ditch isn't gonna survive very long if that much water is pouring in there. So it's some more research and we'll
Yeah, but
come back,
Yep.
Yeah.
I was surprised when he said that, and yet Shelley sat there and seemed to think that was part of could be part of the,
Yeah,
what's the, part of the permit process, so we need to look into that.
Well, the thing is, we've got to have that in place before something like that happens, don't we? Because if like, just for an example, somebody wants to build a development of some sort or a building of some sort,
mhm.
and we say, you've got to pave this, and we don't have it in our bylaws or whatever, we can't make them.
No, I think it's part of each individual development. And the ones I've been part of, no one anticipated the need or what was gonna happen. So you just look at what the project's impacting, and you say, you need these permissions, and you're impacting us in this negative way, and somewhere that has to be corrected.
Well, yeah, see, that one down there, they're not going to put any water onto us, because they've got drainage on site.
That drains into our ditch. That drains into our ditch, the way I understand.
No,
But in any event,
no. They've got drainage
let's
under
look
their
into
parking
it.
lot. They got them, I forgot what they call them, but they're like a arch cage. And there's stone around it, and all the drainage goes into that on site.
Oh.
They do have a settling pond.
Yeah, but this is beyond that, Art, because I talked to the engineer.
No, I was told it was draining off into our ditch.
Well, I did too.
Well, we need to gather
More
information.
That was
Clearly,
my-
nothing has been built in this town in so long that we forgot what the rules are for something being
Well,
built.
yeah, what I'm afraid of is, something like that comes along, and it needs to be done, and we can't do it.
Well, let's
We're not
research
protecting
this
the
question.
town that way.
Move from there.
Get the information.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, we'll look into that.
we will look into it. Yeah, it's probably,
When is the DRB closing the hearing?
uh, They did close it.
They did close it.
Yes. Okay, moving on from the roads report to the budget report. I believe we have someone here who is wanting to talk to us about our budget. Are you Lisa Byers?
I am.
Why don't you come up and we'll talk about Lisa's thing first. Lisa is director of Cat TV.
I am.
Okay.
Hi.
And
Hello, Lisa.
you wrote to us asking that we help pay for the cost of recording our meetings in our
Correct.
next budget, and we've certainly enjoyed getting that done for free, and then we certainly see it as a valuable service. A lot of people who don't come to these meetings, and you can see there's a lot of people who don't come to these meetings. A lot of people do watch them live when they go out on Cat TV, and later when they're on YouTube. So especially when it's minus 5 degrees outside, it's good for people to be able to follow along from the comfort of their homes. But I understand you're having some financial difficulties, so probably that's where you should start, is telling us what's causing you to have to come to us and make this request.
All right, thanks. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk at short notice, so I won't take up too much of your time. I could talk about this for days, so I'll try to be as brief as I can. So Cat TV and PEG Access in general is facing a lot of challenges right now, and it's a really complex situation with a lot of different issues. So like I said, I don't want to get into too deep into all of the issues, but there's about 6 major issues that Cat TV is facing right now. Some of them are more immediate concern, and some of them may be down the road, but the fact is it's kind of this perfect storm of all of this happening at once, which is really causing me to reach out to our community. So just to quickly say, the first thing is Comcast has started using new accounting practices that allows them to divert funding away from cable revenue, which therefore takes it away from the franchise fee, which is what's used to fund us. So we're working with the Department of Public Service to investigate whether they can be doing what they're doing, whether they cannot be doing what they're doing. But for Cat TV alone, in our fiscal year, we've lost $20,000 because of that, and that's a big hit for us.
What's your total budget?
Our total budget is about $393,000 for our operating and about $49,000 for our capital.
So around 5%.
Yeah. We've seen our funding plateau because of cord cutting. People are not using traditional cable subscriptions anymore. They're using streaming services and that kind of thing. So I count that as a threat, but that's been this kind of slow progression where it's been this but this was a step. This was a cliff that we just went off completely unexpectedly. The cord cutting is something that we've been planning for and thinking about. So those are 2 of them. Another threat is Comcast. For at least the last 5 years, I've been personally kind of leading the charge to make sure that Comcast is meeting its obligations in the state of Vermont through its Certificate of Public Good process. And the great news is that we keep winning and we keep holding their feet to the fire. The bad part is that they keep fighting back. And they're currently suing the Public Utilities Commission because of the CPG case that we've been fighting so successfully. So that I've been chairing that effort for the state, and it's cost the 25 access centers like Cat TV, it's cost us over $150,000 so far to fight this with Comcast. So that's number 3. Number 4 would be the FCC rulemaking that you so kindly submitted comments about, where the the cable companies are pushing the FCC to create new rulemaking that would, it's a little complicated, but basically, the franchise fees, they are charged rent for using public rights of way. Those are franchise fees. Here in Vermont, we get those franchise fees to do the work that we do. This new rulemaking would allow them to assess values on what that franchise fee could be, essentially without a lot of boundaries. So basically, they could value the cost of our channels. They could value all the back end infrastructure, and then that would count as a franchise fee as opposed to providing us the funding that we get. So it could zero out our funding 100%. And then there's another FCC rulemaking down the pipe that would also do it, which would basically take local control away from public rights of way in favor of the 5G deployment. So, and then additionally, if that wasn't enough, there's a court case being heard by the Supreme Court, which actually has to do with what started off to be a small fight in an access center in Manhattan, where the access center banned one of their users and she sued them. It has actually progressed to the Supreme Court, and the cable operators are using the opportunity to try to put the argument in that PEG access is unconstitutional against the cable companies. So there's, like I said, this is really complex and there's a lot going on. So I don't expect that we can solve all of these problems tonight, but it's important for me to be educating our communities on what's happening. We've been serving the community for 27 years, and we've been doing it fairly quietly and very with a lot of commitment and regularity, and it's something that everybody's always been able to count on. We've always been there. We've always done it. I've been there for over 20 years, so it's been a huge part of my career. So having all of these threats come up is really shaking our foundation. The bottom line is that we need to become more creative about how we're looking for alternative funding. And the services that we've always been able to provide to our communities and our town governments and our schools, we just can't do anymore. This $20,000 funding cut makes it that much harder. We cover more than 20 meetings live a month. It's a huge drain on our resources. Not only that, but we now offer, those services have increased. The fact that we're live right now on channel 17, we're also live on our website and on Facebook right now, and we archive those on YouTube. So I think we all agree that the services that we provide are really a huge value to the residents, and that's something that we are really committed to keeping and maintaining, but we have to be creative about how we can do it. Like I said, we can't solve all the 6 problems tonight, but what we can do is start somewhere, and that's essentially what I'm doing. And I'm saying I have to start the conversation, and starting the conversation is we need to charge to cover meetings. So we're working with the towns and the schools to do this. So we are looking for $1,800 to cover 24 meetings. The average length of your meeting is an hour and a half. We're not charging for travel time, setup, breakdown, or media processing. So I'm not saying that we're not going to do that in the future. We probably will be doing that in the future. But we have to make up the shortfall somehow. So that's my spiel, so to speak. And we are very committed to keeping the doors of local government open, but we can't do it with a funding drop. So.
Can you get extra funding by running like PSAs on cable news or on your cable station?
So we have been working for a couple years because of the cord cutting trend, because the funding really had leveled out. We have been more creative. One thing that we've been doing is underwriting. So we have been working with local businesses and nonprofits to have them sign on as underwriters, and we have been successful in that. We've been doing some production contracts where we're doing some video work for hire, and we've been doing some fundraising, and we've been cutting costs a lot, as much as we possibly can. And I guess I should also mention some of the other things on the statewide and national level. I'm still continue to work hard on the regulatory front. We've been meeting with legislators. We met with the governor's office. We're considering our options in the legislative session this year. Vermont has always been very progressive with PEG access. We have 26 access centers serving the state. And the Public Utilities Commission has always really supported that. Which is why they're being sued by Comcast. So there's a lot of efforts on a lot of different levels to look at the big picture and ways that we can maintain our services. So it again, I think the solutions are almost as complex as the issues themselves, because I'm trying to work locally to help Cat TV, but also on a statewide level and a national level with our federal legislators. So there's a lot of multifaceted things happening at the same time.
Kind of sounds like we need a line item in our budget, don't we?
Yeah, it would actually be simple to do, be it under administration, just thinking about it as you're speaking. It's really more, CAT is more a vendor than anything else. I mean, it's a service we're consuming, which has been for free. Given our 5-year trend in our budget, it's, now that you've asked for the amount, I'll say it's like a blip in what we really be doing. So, it really, board wants it could be easily done.
Is that gonna be enough? Have you,
Yeah, that's-
have you costed it out?
It has to be multifaceted. So, I think that it's important for us to be asking for, it's tough for me to come to Shaftsbury and ask for more and in a different, using a different formula than if I go to the town of Bennington and
That's
ask
it, yeah,
them. So,
yeah.
again, this is where we have to start. I think that, there was a lot of conversation about whether we ask for an outright appropriation versus, charging for the meetings. And I think that's a catch-22 right now. But it's, the time is right now for us and for you because it's budget season. So we're kind of, this is all new territory. We weren't sure what was going to work best for what towns. And is it enough? Do we need more? Yeah, we need more. But I think it's a place to start. And I think that as we go forward, these costs are going to increase. I think that we're being generous with the amount of services that we provide versus how much we're asking.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a public service, and obviously we have a large audience who watches, so that's important. I'm just thinking that down the road, think about it, because then we could also televise other meetings, in the DRB and all the other ones that would then, and charge a fee, it's gonna cost you, $200 to film this meeting or to broadcast this meeting, but
Buy some airtime.
yeah, when I miss a meeting, I watch you on YouTube.
Yeah.
Because I don't get cable, so,
Right.
so.
And the
Yeah.
internet has widened our audience
Yeah,
significantly. So
Yeah. This is a battle you have fought since the beginning of cable. Yeah, because I remember, I keep, I remember when it started, and I don't know how long they were in court the cable companies.
Yeah.
You know, trying to get them finally to,
Yeah, they really are fighting it,
Yeah.
and right now I think that they see it as an opportunity, like the Supreme
Yeah.
Court case.
Yeah.
They're just seeing this as an opportunity
Yeah.
to really chip away at that foundation of
Yeah.
their obligation.
Yeah.
And the bottom line, and as a municipality, this is important because it's eroding your local control of the public
Yeah.
rights of way, and that
Yeah.
I think is
Yeah.
the thing that the small governments need to fight back on.
and people don't understand that whole frequency
Yeah.
auction that went on
Yeah.
was just unbelievable. Nobody has any idea how much that cost the United States. It was a debacle. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're really finding ways right now, and so we have to fight the good fight, and but we also need the community to support us and look for other ways to raise money, and doing a good old fashioned membership drive and those kinds of things. It's going to take a lot of work, but like I said, we have to start somewhere.
Can you generate money through public service announcements?
I'm a purist, so I really try to stay as true to our mission as I can. So that's where the underwriting and things come in. We
I don't think you're set to a schedule when you have to play them, as long as you play them during the day.
right, yeah, it's
Public service announcements are generally a donation by a network to the
Right.
public service, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
why they're
they're-
on at 2 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't cost them ad
right.
revenue, yeah.
So we
I know when I was in
we
radio.
haven't really charged for channel time. There's a fine line, and Beck can attest to how many conversations we have as a staff and as our board as a full organization to creative ways. But for me, like I said, I'm really careful about our mission and where that line is, and we're having to really test that. It's hard. This is hard. This is hard for me to have to come and ask a town board for money because we've never had to do this.
Are you asking for the same from each board, or?
The same format. It's the cost be different depending on the number of meetings and how long they are.
Yeah,
But essentially, the formula is the same.
yeah.
So you'd probably like to do this under a contract? And
Yes.
what would the contract run from the first of the year?
Yeah,
or-
I think that we would do an annual
Could it run
contract.
fiscal year?
What is your
fiscal
fiscal year?
July 1st
Right.
to June 30th?
Yeah, we can. We'd prefer to do it calendar.
But we have other calendar ones. I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'd prefer to do a calendar, mainly because we anticipate the cost having to go up.
Mhm.
So waiting till July of,
Yeah. Yeah. This one we couldn't fund till July 1st, though. If we approved it, we'd have to make the payment then.
okay,
This is not, it's not in the
Right.
budget.
right.
We could.
You can.
We can spend off budget if we have an emergency. If certainly, it sounds like there's consensus on the board for funding to make sure that our meetings get televised in fiscal year 20, starting July 1.
Yes.
If there's a danger that our meetings would not get televised between now and July 1, I think we would find some money in the couch cushions to make sure that that keeps happening. But the question tonight is really about the budget. So I had come in thinking that we would put this down as a community appropriation. Art, it sounds like you're about to make a motion that we
Put it
make a
as
line item in the
yeah,
budget to
Absolutely.
fund CAT TV to televise our meetings for $1,800 for FY20.
Yes.
So move.
Moved by Art, seconded by Tony. Any
Whatever.
discussion on that point,
Don't
Dave?
fight, don't fight here.
Yeah.
Looking at fiscal 20, which will be half of 2021, or you'll be asking for a new amount come next January. Maybe we should up this a little bit because I assume there'll be an increase that you'll be asking for next year. You're asking for 1,800 January
Yeah.
19. So just to cushion us, how about putting 2,200 in the
In the
fiscal
budget.
20 budget? Because we have to cover, it's gonna be a different amount come next year.
So you're saying from July to
Yeah, whenever I
January.
look at anybody we have a contract with, I always try and anticipate what it's gonna go up.
Are you not optimistic that Vermont is going to prevail in their lawsuit against
No.
Comcast?
No.
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 Well, it'll be $400 more we'll have left over if I'm wrong, but I'd rather be
Yeah.
careful about it.
That's why I quit buying Comcast. Can't afford them.
So
Yeah.
I amend the motion to be $2,200 instead of the 18.
We have a motion from Art to amend the amount in the motion from $1,800 to $2,200.
I second that.
Second by Joe. Any discussion on the amount?
We're just doing the amendment now.
Right. All in favor of changing the amount in the motion from $1,800 to $2,200, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That amendment is agreed to, so the main motion is, do we fund a line item in our budget for FY20 for $2,200 to pay Cat TV to televise our meetings? Any more discussion on that point? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
So that motion carries 5-0-0.
So I have a motion to enter into a contract for calendar year 19 with Cat TV for $1,800. That way, when I get the contract, we can just pay.
So you want to do calendar year for 1,800?
Well, she's billing calendar year, so fiscal 19 is $1,800. So if the board approves it now, as soon as you send me it, I can send the first 900, and then 900 in July when the rest of it comes out of the budget.
Is there a motion to allow David to enter into a contract with Cat TV to televise our meetings during calendar year 19?
For the first half of calendar year 19.
For the whole calendar year, for
For the-
$1,800.
For the
Okay.
whole calendar year 2019 for $1,800.
Correct.
So move.
Moved by Art,
Second.
seconded by Joe.
Yep.
Any discussion on the contract? All in favor of approving, allowing David to enter into contract with Cat TV, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that motion is approved 5-0-0.
Good luck.
Very
Thank
good.
you very much,
Thank you.
gentlemen. I
You're
appreciate your
welcome.
time.
Thanks.
I'll be in touch and we
Okay.
can work it. Thanks.
I meant to mention it during the discussion. I'll go ahead and mention it now, just in the way of full disclosure. A friend of mine who is on the board at Cat TV asked me if I wanted to be on the board at Cat TV. I said that I did. I have not been elected to the board at Cat TV yet. For the same reason I didn't think Tony was in conflict for being on the board at Bennington Rescue Squad. I don't believe there's a conflict of interest with me being a candidate for the Cat TV board, because I don't think Lisa's gonna pay me a bunch of money either. Okay, the other big item we need to settle on tonight is funding for Bennington Rescue Squad. We had entered into a motion the last time. The motion was to increase the funding in the FY20 budget for Bennington Rescue Squad from $15,000 to $25,000. That motion was postponed. So that motion is back on the table and open to discussion. Art particularly wanted Tony to be here to get his perspective on what level of funding we should be thinking about for Bennington Rescue Squad.
Yeah, I think probably I'm the one that has been questioned this the most. It's just that, the amount, if a Shaftsbury citizen was to ask me, why is the amount going to rescue squad going up every year? Are we getting that many more calls? And the answer is no. And so the short answer is that because Forrest says that's what we owe them. Well, I don't quite agree with Forrest's analogy of how he came up with that. First of all, it wasn't a fault of Shaftsbury that the endowment got dwindled down. All they're trying to do is come up with to get the endowment, or the shortfall in the endowment. But I don't think he took into consideration that Arlington comes down And I don't think he took into consideration the number of calls that Bennington has Bennington has per capita as far as the number of calls that Shaftsbury has per capita. So I understand it gets very complex, but I think what came to light in his discussion is that they make money by trucking or by transporting people.
Load 'em up.
So if there's a chance that they get a call and say that somebody's got to be moved, they're going to jump to it because they got to make some money. His comment is that by Shaftsbury and Bennington paying in a sum of money over and above what they charge for picking up somebody in Shaftsbury or something like that, that gives them a better chance to keep an ambulance in Bennington ready to service. And I guess I can say that we need to invest in that safety, if that's the right word. I don't agree with that it's going to be $40,000. I'm going to fight that one. I mean, his number was $40,000 based on a lot of things that I disagree with.
Yeah.
Okay,
It was based on a state rate, and it was configured differently than the reality of the number of transports that the rescue squad does currently back and forth with Shaftsbury. So if we went on that rate, we're okay, that the 25 certainly falls within that.
okay.
So it's much lower, than the state rate, which,
So those numbers are saturated by a state rate. And
yeah, what they did was they tallied, the transports and other towns, and also towns of same size, that kind of thing.
But if in your discussions on the board, I mean, does that seem to be what I'm saying is that we're more assured of a ambulance that can handle emergencies?
Yeah, and also, I think that people need to understand that they have the right to request Bennington transport them. Currently, people aren't aware of that, I think, and
To transport in an emergency?
well, no, not an emergency, because that's a 911
because that's-
thing.
Yeah,
But,
okay.
I'm sorry, but.
So that's why I'm tripping over it,
Yeah,
him
yeah.
also trying to guarantee
Yeah,
that there'll be an ambulance available,
yeah,
because.
no,
we cannot-
no, it's not a guarantee. It's not a
Yeah,
guarantee.
because,
Yeah,
if they're busy,
Arlington jumps in and helps us out. If they're
Arlington
busy.
Yeah,
responds to
Arlington does.
Manchester,
I believe what-
Bennington, Townham
Yeah.
responds to Bennington, so.
Yeah.
I believe what Forrest said was that they are, based on funding from towns, they're committing to keep a ambulance in the house, at least one at all times, even if they could send that ambulance out to make money in a transport.
yeah.
If it's the last one,
Yeah.
they will not send that ambulance
Yeah.
out to make money in a transport.
And, they're doing everything they can.
That doesn't
to,
say that
you know,
we're always going to have an ambulance, because that last one could get called
Oh, the
to
911 is.
Woodford
is-
at the
is
same
a
time we need it in
crapshoot,
Yeah.
Shaftsbury, but it does increase the chances that one is available
Yeah.
if they don't totally commit to sending them out for funding and transport.
So do we have a problem now with emergencies not being met?
No.
Is that why? Okay.
Yes.
No, and that's, and the other thing too is, and
Yes.
again, I think that the squad is remiss in getting out to people the information about the fact that they have moved from a volunteer organization
Yes.
to a paid medical professional organization. And, that being said, it costs a lot of money.
Oh, yes, and I understand that.
And our allotment only goes to a particular, fund. It doesn't go toward that medical, it really is going toward capital and just the daily expenses of running that organization.
Do you remember Payne? The ambulance service, Payne? They were in Bennington for a while.
Oh, were they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did transports out of the
Yeah.
hospital.
Yeah.
That was their business.
That was, whatever happened to that?
I don't know. I've also often puzzled why the hospital doesn't have a contractual
Right.
agreement with one of the many transport services
Yeah,
to reduce this burden.
Because that really was key at some
Yeah.
point.
You know, it's so hard to look at it, you know, emergency services, it's like cops and firemen, you know,
It
there's no
is.
profit in cops and firemen.
yeah,
You know, you can sit around for days and
You need
then
'em.
you go crazy. You know, and that's what the ambulance service is too. It's hard to look at it
and they're looking at a lot of different options, I mean, because transport, which, you know, sometimes people don't need a medical transport, but the hospital wants them out of the emergency room back to the
Yeah.
home, and that could be done by taxi.
Many, if you even go to neighboring counties, you
Yeah.
see whole different levels
Right.
of transport.
Right.
You don't send a paramedic or a BOS
Right.
rig to drive someone back to the nursing home. They send a
Right.
van. I mean, it's common in every other area. I think,
Yeah,
too.
well, you know, I think Forrest made headlines by the fact that he's trying to break into that network there.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering why, you know, the facility itself isn't looking into a contractual with the neighboring, you know, Republic and all these ones.
I
that
think
surround
they've
us.
got other things going on. I think
Yeah.
with you know, I think when they get totally absorbed by Dartmouth, then they'll begin to see, you know, if they can find a financial benefit to
Yeah.
doing it. Because right now, I think most rescue squads are running deficits.
Yeah, pretty much an up and down, and each one in this county, from Manchester,
Yeah.
Arlington, Pownell, and Bennington, they're all professional paid staffs, and I believe each one of them now is paramedic level.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Pownell, Arlington's transitioning now. So they're all running the same level of service,
but they're running deficits.
and they're running back and forth to each other.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's nuts.
Oh, yeah.
So
It's-
how about we
Go
get
ahead.
back, because
Anyway,
we're really
sorry.
trying to come to a number, right?
I just
And
want
I
to give you
think,
information.
Thank you.
I wanted to make one point, and Tony, I wanted to bounce this off you, see if I'm right about this, that the $42,000 number that Forrest originally said he would like to see us funded at, that was essentially a state average or an average cost per resident multiplied by the 3,500 people
Yeah.
in Shaftsbury. And it's been pointed out, we don't get all of our EMS services from Bennington Rescue Squad. Arlington Rescue Squad covers part of the town, and we pay them. And also, as David has pointed out, that our rate of calls is quite a bit lower
Per capita.
per capita than in Bennington. So a couple of data points that argue that our number should be less than 42,000. I think the question that we have to ask ourselves is, you know, what is the right number? And, you know, I think we have to also think that's not just, you know, what is a fair number, but also, you know, what is a number that makes sure that we keep Bennington Rescue Squad around? Because we would not be well served by saying, you know, we don't owe you more than $15,000, and, you know, other towns take that point of view and they end up, you know, reducing services or not being around. So, you know, and the point that we essentially got free services from them for quite a long time while they were running off the endowment. So the number on the table, which was a number David pulled out of the air when he started budgeting, was $25,000. So that's where we're started. Is there an amendment to change that number? So,
What are we currently at now?
15,000.
15.
Yeah, that's wow. It's almost on
My current thought is we get to 25 and we stay there. We don't go above that next year. I don't think we're going to get to 42.
Is there a,
It's hard to justify 25 when we have a low call rate now, and it is divvied up.
do they have a rate a charge per call? That you can divide, like, what do we pay in relation to the calls Bennington has?
Yeah.
It's very complicated.
It's
Yeah.
No way to know.
By each level of call, if it's an emergency, by each level of transport, if it's a transport.
And
Yeah,
remember,
if you
they
need
don't get
advanced
paid.
life.
They don't get paid if they don't transport.
Yeah.
Right.
So they come fully equipped say you call and you come fully equipped, they check you out and you go, I'm fine, and you stay home. They cannot charge for that call.
No,
Medicare.
when they come up and picked up my wife and took her to the hospital, I got a pretty good bill.
Right,
Yes.
yeah. But if they didn't transport, you can't bill.
And that's some of the fallacy.
Yeah.
That's some of the problems they're running into.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they would send up probably a fully equipped ambulance.
Well, yeah, obviously, yeah, sure.
So
And that's why it's hard to come up with a per call number,
Yeah.
because they have to do their budgeting for, to cover all of those calls that they're not gonna get paid for.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I understand that, but I mean, I just think, you know, if they had something that they had a per call charge for medic, that we could pay the same or something. So that we were,
I think,
But I think,
We need a motion, don't we, to
Yeah.
have this discussion?
there is a motion.
Is there
Well,
a
the
mo-
motion is to fund them at $25,000. That's where we're at now.
So I'll second that at this.
We're already into
All right.
discussion
Oh,
on
oh,
that.
I'm sorry.
It was,
Okay.
all the motion was made and seconded.
Yeah, we did that when you weren't here.
Oh, okay.
Art wanted to wait until you were here, so we postponed it till now. We come back, we're in discussion on that motion.
Okay.
I think to answer Ken's question, you told me at one time, you took the amount of money that,
Yeah.
that North, Bennington was asked to put in their line budget, 200 and some odd thousand. Divided that by the number of calls that Bennington had, came up with a
Yeah.
number, multiplied it, back figured it to,
What it would be,
Yeah,
it was based
so
off
what-
Forrest's original charts when he came in the first
Yes,
time.
and-
And you could figure out the amount per call
and about 20,000 was about
yeah,
15 to 20,000. We're now about 20,
25.
25. So I think we're, to answer your question, it is about the same. This 20 to 25 that we're talking now is about the same as what Bennington
Okay.
Service is getting for
Yeah.
200 and some odd thousand.
that's what I wanted to know, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
I mean, 15 to 25. So, what am I missing on that? 20 to 25?
Well, 25. Yes.
What from 15?
It went from 15 to 25. The-
So our calls haven't doubled or anything, right?
No,
It's-
no, but I don't think,
On average, though,
I think we were
on
aiming
average,
for
on the calls that are brought into this town, when the ambulance does come, what on average is the percentage of people that do get transported?
I wish I brought my figures with me. I think, I want to say 70%.
Okay.
And the other thing that I know that Forrest worked with the town, we had some frequent flyers, and they remediated that. They purposely brought that number. It was like one person calling multiple times.
Mm.
They finally connected that person with the direct services, finally convinced that person to access those services, and consequently, the rate has gone, the rate of transport has gone down. But I think Shaftsbury has gotten better with lessening the calls.
Yeah.
And I don't know, we're just healthier.
Yeah,
Or,
and a lot of these things get difficult to,
yeah.
if you send an ALS unit out to someone who has a sore ankle, because
Yeah.
that's what's available, you're not gonna get paid for the rate. You're paying for this thing to be there anyway, so it's kind of a mixed message, but, you can't file for ALS rates bringing in someone with ankle pain. So it gets into all
It gets
vague
very
things. It's
complicated, yeah.
very,
Yeah, they'll get somebody will call 911 and say, I hurt my hand.
yeah.
So they send a normal ambulance and find out the guy shot his hand off. And so consequently needed advanced life support, a life service, as opposed to just
Yeah,
So-
yeah, but that's a whole nother discussion.
yeah, it's a whole,
that's,
discussion's unbelievable, but anyway.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? Okay, so all in favor of funding Bennington Rescue Squad at $25,000 in fiscal year 20, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? One opposed?
Yes.
Okay. So the motion to fund Bennington Rescue Squad at $25,000 for FY20 passes by a vote of 410. Very good.
I do want to say that I'm not against.
Yeah.
I was,
We know that. We know
I
that.
was,
Oh, yeah.
I was against
Thank
it
you.
too, so for a while.
So, David, what else you want to tell us about the FY20 budget?
Well, I have to redo it now. I finished version 8 today, but now I have to go back and add in 2200 for Cat TV. Basically, this was going to be the finished one. Now I'll go back and finish it again. But the bottom line is, fiscal 20 budget is about $7,000 more than what we actually spent in fiscal 15. So if you do it by the inflation rate, we're actually about $140,000 behind where we should be spending. So that's why the 2200 for Cat TV is not a big investment for us. It's we're actually saving quite a bit here. Other than that, the 25,000 was incorporated into this one, so we're in pretty good shape. The only change I made was Arlington Rescue actually had a typo. They said 7,500, but they really only wanted 7,000. So
Well, I just want to make clear why I voted no on that. It's not so much that I'm against them having money to operate. It just seems like, my God, you're going from 15 to 25. You're almost doubling your cost, and as you said, the calls are less. So it's kind of backwards thinking.
I think one of the discussions we've had was, Forrest came in with the big numbers, so we're like, oh, we'll give you a little bit, then we'll give you a little bit more. So we're just kind of getting to where we intended to be.
Yeah, this
Because
was all.
we were all
this
kind
episode
of
was
taken aback in the beginning.
Forrest never gave us those numbers. He gave us a lot bigger.
A lot bigger numbers.
Yeah, he wanted $42,000
Yeah.
2 years ago, yeah?
Yeah. We're creeping.
Yes.
Okay. Should have an umbrella.
It's not gonna get any cheaper.
So
Okay.
fiscal 20 is going to be about 2.9% above last year's budget. But as I said, it's only $7,500 more than our total expenditures in fiscal 15. So we're saving a lot. If you add the CPI, go to any chart with it, we are actually 6.6% behind where we would be if we just added the inflation to fiscal 15. And it's a difference of about $144,000. So we're in pretty good shape going into next year. It's a very minor increase in the tax rate. I think it's 0.0163, something like that, depending on how the grand list that comes out and all that. I changed the notes that we had reduced some because we decided these things. So those A through E now. We talked about Cole Hall and the Hawkins Fund and the road projects, which mostly will be finishing grants we already have outstanding and we've already been awarded. And we're putting in for another grant to finish East Road hopefully next year, so we can finally get off of East Road altogether for another 25 years hopefully. And there's just lots of grants out there for little road projects. The ones we have, we're probably going to, not probably, we're going to bid them all out, hopefully in the next few weeks. So that contractors, because we're getting cash value out of this, so the contractors can do these projects under the foreman supervision, and our guys can continue grading in the spring and ditching and cutting trees and things like that. We did Tinkham last year under one of these grants. We did the work and did reimbursement for everything, but with better organization, it's quicker and better to have subs doing this work under our supervision while our guys are continuing to do other things. Because we do have quite a few things to do. Yeah.
Give it a try.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, will be a good chance to see what we can do using subs in a lot of these things. There's another RAS grant coming out too, so we're hoping to get some of that.
You got anything in for Twitchell, Bucks Hill for next year?
Buck Hill, no.
Paving?
No. Buck Hill is, I think it's slated for 22, maybe 21.
Are we still on target for February for the completion date in the garage?
Yeah, it should be mid-February, but we won't actually have, we'll have a CO mid-February. We won't actually sign the project off until probably the end of April though. because of the site work that can't be finished now. This is all frozen.
We're gonna pop corks and cut ribbons.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we'll have an open house there, and
Sure.
an open house in Cole Hall. People should come in and see what's going on and what it is. Because the crew will be moving in at a steady pace. First is tools to line out, make some benches. You want to do everything in a programmed way. And then to make our accountants happy, we're going to inventory everything as it goes in.
That's smart.
Because as we've gotten the report,
Yeah.
the auditor's report, that is, one of their comments again is they would like the inventory completed. And so this will be a big step because they have most of the loose nuts and bolts, and we'll just inventory everything as it goes into the building. And then we'll be able to delete a lot of things as we auction off the remnants back here, so. And that's the thing I should bring up as an aside. We have the auditor's report back. It's not finalized. It will be, but hopefully this week. No big surprises in it at all. It's pretty straightforward. I'll get copies. But they asked us a few questions. We sent them a few things. I'm hoping to have a copy to send to the board next week, or by the end of this week, so we can just, we only have till next Friday to get this thing ready to go into the printer anyway, so. But it came out one, they only had 3 things on it. One, they did bring up the landfill, how we sell our pay to low things, but as we told them last year, we're tearing it down, building a new one, so we'll address that with this one somehow. I'm not sure how we're gonna do that, so. It's kind of a difficult thing, selling stickers and meeting accounting standards, but we'll figure something out for them. But for the rest of the budget, it hasn't changed at all since how we've last talked about it. It's $2,200 higher tonight, but we'll figure that out.
Do we need to do something formal relative to signing off on the budget?
I want to wait till the 30th is Wednesday or Thursday next week. We have that meeting for the second public hearing.
Right.
And this will be incorporated into it because the 30th is the last day to make any changes to anything before we have to put out the warning. So at that meeting, we'll have the warning, and the last of that, that'll be the vote. The warning
Okay,
is the
right,
budget
right,
and
yeah.
everything.
The
Yeah.
warning has the total budget
The
number
total
in it.
budget and all that in it. So I'm leaving that to the last minute because you never know what'll come up, so.
Yeah.
I can't be here for that meeting, so we want to poll
Gonna be gone.
everybody else to make sure they're.
Everybody else can be here on, I believe it's Wednesday, the 30th?
Yeah, I think it's Wednesday, Thursday.
Actually, I've gotta take my mom to Albany. I gotta be there at 3:30.
You 2 guys can be here?
Thursday, no.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
I can't think of
What
anything.
time?
5:30
5:30.
at Cole Hall.
I don't know, tumor in my mom's pancreas.
Okay, so that's a gotta have you 2 guys there.
Yeah.
Or we've just lost a year on the bylaws. No problems?
And the budget.
Okay. If you need a ride, call me.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you don't.
Okay.
Do it again.
Anything else on the budget?
No, I think we've covered that pretty thoroughly so far.
Okay. All right, you added an item here, change in disability insurance.
Yes, the crew has, I had Aflac in, it's the annual meeting with Aflac. The crew unanimously has decided they would like to go with Aflac short-term disability insurance. The additional cost of town, which is already rolled into this budget, is a little over $1,000 a year. We pay 50% of the disability. The members pay the rest, so it's $1,000 more increase with them. I will have each member sign off, because there's some significant differences in these two. One, Dearborn National has a $10,000 life insurance policy attached to it. This does not, and I want to make sure, and everyone's going to sign off that they understand that this does not have a life insurance policy to it. But from my point of view, if the whole crew wants to go with this, which does have far better disability benefits than Dearborn National, then if they all sign off on it, because it does require everyone to participate, then we can do it. Like I said, the cost to us is about $1,000 more a year. And the cost
Total?
total,
Okay.
yeah, and each of them, their individual costs are gonna double. because we pay 50/50, so their costs are also gonna double. And they're fine with that, and, as Tim can say firsthand, the shortfalls of our current policy. And this is far more robust if you're gonna be taken care of better. The other part of this was the town clerk was asking if she could take in this. Now, under Dearborn National, any full-time employee was entitled to have disability insurance. I never wanted it because I don't want to pay the rate for, guys over 60 pay a lot for disability insurance, I don't want to pay it. But that's something the board will have to decide whether she could be in on this too. She is a full-time employee. That's not required under Aflac, but, we would pick up her 50%, which I don't know what that would be, probably $120 a year. At most, $240 a year. But
Yeah,
it's
it can't
adding
be
another
much
thing.
if it's $1,000 for the
Yeah.
6 road crew
Yeah.
members, so.
Well, it's all by age and everything, so.
Oh, yeah.
Because some of them are paying very little, others are paying
Right.
quite a bit higher. It's by salary and age, so it varies significantly.
Yeah, well, we had kind of gone through the discussion about health insurance with the town clerk and decided that she was really a full-time employee of the town, much like the road crew is. Any objection to allowing her to apply for disability insurance?
I don't think we can. I don't think we cannot. I don't think we can deny her.
Well, I guess I'm assuming that we would pay her our
Yes.
50% like we
Yeah.
do the
Yes.
rest of it. Yeah. All right, that does represent probably a change we ought to,
It probably should be a motion
motion.
to change the town's disability insurance to Aflac, short-term disability insurance to Aflac, and to include the town clerk's position as a eligible position.
So move.
moved by Ken,
Second.
seconded by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, by a vote of 5-0-0, we move that the town's disability insurance can be moved to Aflac, and that includes the town clerk as a full-time employee.
Very good.
Let's see, coal hall and town garage. Mid-February, the garage will be finished. We are doing water testing this week. No water can be pumped until samples are taken and sent out. It's not the normal state testing, it's the same testing we do for all our test wells at the landfill. If you'll remember, our well for the garage is going to be a permanent test well as part of the whole testing system there. We have made room for future installation of a poet or anything else we might need inside the mechanical room. We're not installing it, we're not purchasing it. This is the time to make room. You don't want to find out you need it down the road. So we will have those back in several weeks, and we'll know where we stand, then they'll pipe in the building. The heat's on, the propane tanks were partially filled. I agreed with Russell because they ordered, I think, 500 gallons or something to test systems, and when they sign the building over to us, we'll go ahead and credit them whatever's left in the tank, however many gallons are left. But it is moving along very well. It looks good on the inside. It's getting there. It's getting done. This is the quick part now.
I'm curious if the well comes back that's got the PFO or contaminants over this state level, if we're allowed to wash trucks with a separate system, or if everything's got to go through the POET system, we want to take a look at the POET system before we install it, because you're going to be requiring quite a bit more water than what a standard household would be. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. We've approached Culligan, who's our vendor for the other power systems we're running,
Okay.
and this should be able to handle what we
Okay.
need to do with it. The poet and whatever other system we need to put in. It's a
But
contingency where.
Art's point, I think, is that it seems like an awful waste to filter out 25 parts per trillion of PFOA out of water and then wash salt and sand off a truck with it.
Well, the building isn't built with two systems. If it comes out of the well, from what I hear from DEC or A&R, acronym A&R, goes into the building, it has to go through the poet first.
Really?
Yep.
We can't, it sounds like a T, I believe is the technical term for
You're gonna-
what we need.
The other part of that is, and I know it's gonna be looked at differently by different people. If it's over the level and you're creating an inhalable mist, you are in violation. I think you put the poet in and you
Okay.
just do it.
If that's the case, make sure the poet
Can handle the volume.
can handle the volume, because everybody that has a poet in their
Right.
house says I can't take a shower and flush the toilet at the same
Our
time.
poets are
Right.
much better. I haven't had that complaint yet.
Okay, good.
So, we have a better grade poet.
Okay, good.
That's good.
But we can look into that, but it's something we've talked about before, and I know you disagree with that, but for the minimal cost of this thing, over time, and the potential for someone coming back and saying that because this was over the minimum and I had to wash trucks and I got whatever, it's
Well, I think we ought to at least make sure that we're required to do that, because it just is an incredible waste. I mean, the poets, you pump those filters for so long, then you got to replace them. They
Yeah.
cost money to replace. If most of the water that's going to get used at the garage is going to be to wash off trucks and tools.
mhm.
And 6 guys are going to drink 6 gallons of water a day, and the other 200 gallons is going down the drain.
Well, can't you list it as non-potable water and use it to wash the trucks?
Well, that's what David's saying, is that there's probably going to be
If you make the
environmental
mist, you can
regulations
inhale
that
it.
say
But
if you're breathing the mist of
Yeah.
non-potable water, you're at a health hazard.
Yeah.
But let's make sure that that's the case before we.
We don't even know what the test is yet.
Yeah, we don't even know. This is just speculation. We've had this discussion before
Yeah,
too. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'll go back to Casey and yeah,
Give it a try.
yeah,
Okay.
one way or the other.
I
Yeah.
think I'd be more nervous about what's coming off the truck.
But you're right. I mean,
Yeah.
we may never go above 20 in PFOA, and the
Well,
water
yeah.
may be just fine. But
Yeah, that's why we're not even installing it. I want to know what it is. And
Yeah.
But yeah,
we'll see.
given
Yeah,
Depends what colored glasses
and you know what? It would
have
be
at.
like our other
Okay,
well
good.
that went up once and had
If
to
you
go
had
above. So.
rose-colored glasses, you're in trouble.
yeah. Okay. All right. Does that cover town garage and
Yeah,
Town Hall?
Cole Hall is moving along. As we said, that'll be the mid-February, the end of February it'll be done. And then we'll move to the outside.
I wanted to mention to the board, I did, we had a meeting with, I ran into Jack Byers at Goldstone and asked for an estimate on what a design for the exterior of Cole Hall would be. This is just like a proposal,
Okay.
just so we know, if we're talking something that has to be bid out, or, that sort of thing. So that's happening, and part of that is he asked if we had a plat of the yard here, which David thinks we've got one from a 2009 study of Cole Hall, which will at least, without spending any money, allow them to say, how big the building is, the footprint of the building is, and that sort of thing for that. So that's moving along.
I also found a picture of the original steeple. It's not much better than this one.
Yeah.
Apparently it fell off and burned down at some point, and this is a different one.
Mhm.
Yeah, this one has spires all over. But it still has that long, straight, flat run on all 4
With
sides.
just nothing but a box there, yeah.
Yeah, box with spirals.
Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of not my
Okay.
cup of tea.
Okay, any other business?
I have something, I noticed that the state sent you or somebody a letter saying that they were going to consider the speed change on Bottom Hill, and that if we wanted to be there to testify, that they would let us know.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Talking about Hidden Valley
Yes.
area? Yeah.
I just question how much the town should get involved in that when, in my opinion, the biggest problem is that people have to back out of the chocolate barn
Right.
onto a highway. I mean, you'd have to, if that continues, you really should lower the speed limit to 25. I mean, if they're making people back out on and blind too, if you've got 3 cars, the middle
Right.
car is blind until it's back out into the road before they can see beyond the car that's parked next to it. I don't know. I'm just. We can go and say, yeah, we want to change to 45, but I don't think that that's the safe way to do it.
We, the town, did request these changes of the state. I think
Yes.
it would certainly be normal for us to go and
And maybe the state will see that. I don't know. Maybe the state will see that that's what the problem is, or could be a potential problem.
Unless they change it to parallel parking in there by the chocolate barn.
Pardon?
If you had it parallel parking only by the chocolate barn, instead of driving in and backing out. If you made it parallel parking, parallel with the road,
You got someone parallel parking
Well-
right off the 7-8 lane, and that'd be even worse.
Yeah, so that's right. Somebody backing in. I don't know.
That's a bad
I
spot.
go
You're
to the
gonna get it
chocolate
no matter
barn
what
all
you
the
do.
time. I don't back onto the road.
No.
There's room to back out and stay on the shoulder.
But you're not from Jersey.
Yeah, I've
Well, I
seen
was
people
gonna say,
back.
I've never had a problem backing out there.
Yeah.
I've never had a problem, I've never had a
And
problem
you're not
backing
driving
out
a
there.
Mercedes.
Yeah.
I've seen
That makes a
a
big
lot of cars there. If the middle car wants to leave, he's
Right.
got to
You're
back
driving
into
that
the road.
Mercedes, you can do
Oh, I see
anything.
what you're getting at, yeah.
I
Yes.
guarantee it.
Yes.
It's a
Yeah, I
terrible.
can see where that would be a problem.
terrible
I've never been in that
location.
predicament.
Yeah.
Okay,
Backing out of there.
just a comment. That's all.
Okay. Other business? Dave?
Nope.
Okay, action items, I don't recall anything that I should have written down tonight. Backing up a little bit, what's going on with Glastonbury Road? Do we ever,
No, we don't have a resolution yet. I was talking to Ricky Harrington, and he wants to get together with Rob Fraley and tell Rob that basically he has part of our agreement, which I'm not sure I agree with, but part of our agreement is that Glastonbury is responsible for doing the road. So if whoever Rob contracts to do their road, it also has to cover our end at no charge. So that would be great if we don't have to pay, Jerry Madison is currently doing it. The state is supposed to be doing it, but Jerry's doing it before the state's there. I don't know how they're working that out. But I know Jerry is the one who applied to the state to do it. So what Ricky's telling me is that, well, we don't have to pay Jerry at all. The state will pay for the whole thing because that's his agreement with the state. So, we'll see how it pans out. The road's being taken care of, but there seems to be a lot of people involved in this. But the road's being taken care of, and actually Jerry's doing a great job, so,
so Jerry is just plowing the whole
yeah, Jerry
thing,
lives
even
up
our
there
part?
now, and so he just plows and he does our part, and we've told him we'll bring him a bucket of sand.
Bucket of sand, right? And it
Yeah,
costs us a
that was
bucket of
the original contract.
Yeah.
Bucket of sand.
Bucket of
So we're
sand.
back to the bucket of sand, but
Okay. So is this action item closed, or do we still need to monitor that?
well, it's not done. We've told the state that we want to go with whoever the contractor is. Ricky's saying we don't have to be involved at all because he has the rule with the state, and it's his bargaining chip with us that he finishes the end of the road, and we give him fire services and things. It's just
Mm,
well, okay,
okay,
yeah. So I don't know quite where we stand in this, but the road's getting done. So
okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we'll keep it open, but we won't worry about it as long as the roads get.
yeah,
plowed.
it's getting done. We'll figure it out.
You're good.
The other item that's a little bit stale is the question about consolidating some of the cemetery funds. We decided we're gonna just
Yeah.
sit on that until we get through budget season and town meeting, and then Dave will have some time to
We
dig
finished
through
it.
some of the records.
Yeah, when we finish the construction and town meeting and that, then we just all need to sit down at a table or representatives from the board, and Rob, representatives, maybe representatives from the board going to the next Board of Trustees meeting with me, and let's just talk about these things, get the information on the table, so we can have one unified question or questions, go to the attorney, and whatever she says, okay, this is how we'll divvy it up. But right now, I'm a little pressed to
Yep.
do research on this stuff.
Yep.
And then you and the cemetery committee are still talking about what shape of water fountains we're
Park-
going to get? Or
Park
is-
committee.
Park, it's like
Parks committee.
park committee.
You said
I said
cemetery.
cemetery committee, yeah, sorry.
It's like, ooh, I don't remember that one.
No, we're not putting a water fountain at the cemetery. Yes, the Parks Committee was,
Yeah. I have a list of actually the things to buy that I'm gonna order out as soon as I get, they have a reasonable price.
okay.
We'll just order them somewhere. And the water fountain won't be a big deal. As soon as we get there in the spring, we'll just have somebody put one in.
Okay,
And they go from a couple of thousand to like $10,000.
yes,
It's really ridiculous how much it costs.
okay. Let's see, at our last meeting, a citizen brought up situation involving the slope of the road around the ditch at 150 Grove, and we wanted to make sure that word got to Mike that there's some concern there, so when he gets to that,
Yeah, we've talked about that.
okay, good, good. At that same meeting, some citizens brought up some noise complaints about dailies. I talked to Brian, he asked me to find out when it's happening and what kinds of sounds. I contacted Carol Roberts, who was here, one of the complainants, and she said she would talk to her neighbors and get back to us. I expected to see them here tonight, so I haven't heard back, so maybe it's gotten quieter, but that's where that stands, is we're waiting to hear from the complainants that as to exactly when it's happening, so Brian can better zero in on what the fix might be. And then Dave, at some point, was going to look into the cost to restore the rink, the ice rink on Cleveland.
Yeah, what we do need will probably cost about $3,000, which is the when you fill the water in.
The liner.
The liner, thank you.
liner.
That word went away, but as spring comes, most of it is still stored in the warming hut over there. So we have to like break it out and see what parts are actually still functioning and everything. But the time to really price these out is in May and June, because they're trying to dump inventory. And pretty soon, actually, they'll look to dump inventory. Because if people buy them in the summer, order them in the summer so that they're ready to go in the winter. So we'll look into that in a little bit more in depth coming up. But the liner I know is gone. I'm hoping all the parts are still in the warming shed. I was told they're there, but I don't think anybody's pulled them out and really like inventoried it in quite some time.
Okay.
I
I
talked to
think
Mike
the
about
idea-
the site work, and that's nothing.
I think the idea in getting a number there was so that we're all comfortable with moving ahead to restore that. Are we all comfortable with moving ahead to restore the ice rink in Cleveland?
Yes.
Given that the liner's gonna cost maybe $3,000? Okay. And,
And the Zamboni.
Yes.
and I don't recall any action items that we had tonight. So if there's nothing else, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Ken, seconded by Art. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.